So the Raiders just had the best offseason in recent memory by grabbing the best defensive tackle in free agency, as well as grabbing 3 of the best players in college football. All that and more on today's episode of the Raider D.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Raider Nation, let's get into this a little bit. Let's get into some of the positives that the Raiders have done that I am super excited about. And you, as a Raiders fan, I am hoping are just as excited as I am, because this is really important for us to start putting together. The Raiders have been a disappointment for the better part of over 20 years. Despite the fact that we moved to Vegas and we built a multi-billion-dollar Death Star Stadium, one of the most profitable stadiums in the NFL, the team has not lived up to the expectations. And that's understandable, partly due to the fact that the Raiders organization has made some terrible mistakes when it comes to head coaching, as well as general managers. Listen, ever since Al Davis went into mental decline before his passing, the Raiders made horrible draft picks as well as horrible decisions in the free agency. After he was gone, Mark Davis took over the team, and let's be honest, it's taking him way too long to figure out how to be an NFL owner. But I think that crazy Mark Davis is starting to get it figured out, because when he realized that McDaniels was a cancer and a horrible hire, he quickly disposed of him. He was not going to make the same mistake that he made with John Gruden. Now, John Gruden wasn't a cancer. He was a great coach, but he was outdated and he was an absolute atrocity when it came to playing the general manager position and making the key decisions in free agency and the draft, as we all know. And because of this, the team had suffered. But no, Mark Davis decided, I am going to start being a big boy. I'm going to start making decisions like a big boy primetime NFL team owner. And he got rid of McDaniels and he put in Antonio Pierce. Now, when you elevate a linebackers coach to interim head coach, not a lot of expectations that he's probably going to end up becoming an NFL head coach, especially with that team. But what Antonio Pierce was able to do was energize and electrify that team, the players, and the Raider Nation fan base. And so rightly so, Antonio Pierce is now the head coach of the Raiders, as I was calling for, and many others, because Antonio Pierce, though lacking head coaching experience, what he has in abundance is motivational skill. This guy is a master at motivating people and staying on target. He's not one of those motivating guys who's just all over the place. No, he has a vision for the team, and he is putting the team in the right direction to get there. And I think when we brought in Tom Telesco, this was to make sure that we had a good steady hand as a general manager who wouldn't just fly off the handle and do whatever Antonio Pierce wanted. So you end up having a nice counterbalance. And that's exactly what Tom Telesco has done. Together with Antonio Pierce and the vision that he has for the team, Tom Telesco has gone out in the free agency and given Antonio Pierce the tools that he needs to really have a great first season as the head coach full force. And let's talk about that. Christian Wilkins. Now, I was calling for Christian Wilkins to come to the Raiders because Christian Wilkins is one of those dudes that is one of those dudes. I mean, look at his presser when he first came to the Raiders.
Do you have a message for Raider Nation?
Raiders! The dude wanted to be here. He is an absolutely motivated player to be a beast on that defensive line. And this is exactly what Antonio Pierce wanted.
Defense, listen, you know we got some ends, and them boys showed up, right? You know what you're going to give them max. Malcolm Kuntz is coming to his own, and Tyree will be just fine. But just how good would it look if you just put a couple more pieces in the middle of that defense, man? And now Max doesn't have to run so far. on the outside because that quarterback he can't step up anymore. You know what I mean? Because you got the inside, you got pressure and force. So I think for us, and that's my main focus, is really just build this team inside out. And I'd love to see us get some badass dudes, man, that are heavy-handed, physical, that play the game the way that I see it.
He said, how nice would it be to add a superstar to that defensive line? That's exactly what he got in Christian Wilkins. Now you have Max Crosby, Christian Wilkins, Tyree Wilson, and Malcolm Kuntz, not to mention the big boys like Jenkins and others who are going to absolutely dominate and scare the heck out of competition. In the AFC West, there is not a better defensive line. In the AFC, I would argue there's not a better defensive line, and probably in the NFL. We probably will have the number one defensive line at the end of the day in 2024 and probably moving forward for a few years because of the moves that we made grabbing Christian Wilkins, as well as a key thing is bringing back players who really played well for us last year, and we did it without breaking the bank. The Raiders did something crazy, and I got to say, Tom Telesco is a master and put on a master class at how to not show your cards moving in to the draft. Nobody, and I mean nobody, had the Raiders pulling Brock Bowers at pick number 13, well, except for this guy. As I said, I did throw that out there a while back. Again, I wasn't actually thinking that it would happen because I actually never thought Brock Bowers would fall to 13. But even if he did, I didn't think the Raiders would grab him because there were so many other things at play. However, we did, and Brock Bowers is that guy when it comes to being a tight end. Now, I know some people are still upset, and let me just make sure everybody understands. I was never upset with the pick. I did want Brian Thomas Jr. because I do believe Brian Thomas Jr. is that dude who with 6'4", 205 pounds, and runs a 4.33 40 is going to be an absolute stud in the NFL. And I think that we need to be thinking about the long-term future of the eventual departure of Davante Adams, whether it be through retirement or other. But I am not at all mad with the fact that we added an absolute dominant offensive weapon to help our second-year quarterback who is really starting to show out in Aiden O'Connell. Having a two tight end set is the best friend next to having an excellent running game to a young quarterback, because what it means is you're able to throw those slot receiver passes and those down the middle of the field passes, which are easier to do than sideline to sideline 20, 30 yards down the field. Your completion percentage should skyrocket when it comes to throwing over the middle of the field to a big tight end like Brock Bowers. And that's why I'm excited, because I think one of the issues that we had and have had for a long time is third down and long. And when you have a guy who stands 6'4" and runs a 4.5 40 as a tight end, weighing in at somewhere around 235 pounds to 245 pounds, this is an absolute weapon. Don't forget, we got Michael Mayer, and the two of them are going to be a two-headed monster in the NFL. Watch for Michael Mayer to take on more of the blocking assignments, the chipping, and then going out for those quick slant and quick out routes. That is how Michael Mayer is now going to be utilized in this offense. I think he's going to really excel at it. While we're going to see Brock Bowers line up more in that traditional tight end slot and slot receiver, and then we'll throw him around in some different stuff, like occasionally throw him out as a wide receiver, even though he will be much more utilized in the middle of the field playing in that slot position. And then you move on to the offensive line. Everybody knew that the Raiders needed to do some upgrading to that offensive line, and I think that we did just that. We literally got the best center/guard in JPJ. Jackson is going to be one of those guys, in my opinion, that we will be talking about in 10 years from now as the best center or guard in the NFL. He plays with an absolute chip on his shoulder. Remember, he even had to play defensive tackle, and I do believe this is where his mean streak comes from. He also grew up wrestling, And as a wrestler, he learned very well how to balance himself, how to position his hips, how to move his feet, and how to hand fight. And that is going to make him superior on that offensive line. Now, he is going to be a rookie. And now, guys, remember, rookie offensive linemen often struggle their first 1 or 2 years. Colton Miller was declared an absolute bust after his rookie year. Look at him now. It takes them a little bit of time, despite how good they may be coming out of college. It is going to probably take JPJ just a year or two to really start to see that true dominant Pro Bowl offensive lineman come out of him. But in the interim, we are much better off with him coming in as a rotational player. He will be an upgrade over where we were at this time last year. And I think that's going to benefit the Raiders in the run game, as well as in Aiden O'Connell by having a great pass blocking lineman added to the scope. Now, don't forget DJ Glaze, who also has very high potential. I think out of the two, DJ Glaze is going to struggle the most in his rookie season, and look for DJ Glaze to be a rotational player, not a starter in 2024. But again, you're adding that depth and you're going to develop these guys into that Pro Bowl caliber lineman that you want for the future. Now, here's the interesting part that I really wanted to talk about, and that is that we grabbed literally the best defensive back in college in the 7th round. I'm talking about Trey Taylor. Trey Taylor out of Air Force was given the Jim Thorpe Award in 2023. And that award, if you're not familiar with it, is given to the best defensive back in all of college football. And this dude won it. He won it because he is an absolute dog out there. But why? Why did he fall all the way to the 7th round? Well, it's pretty simple.
But before we do that, we got to put the kids to bed. You know how we do. Got to thank today's sponsor of the channel, and that is Earth Elixir, owned and operated by a Raiders fan. And it is my favorite company because they offer the Tongat Ali and Fedosia aggressives, which has been proven clinically to raise your testosterone without the need of TRT or testosterone replacement therapy. This is all natural, no fillers, no fluff. You get what you pay for, and the kicker to boot, owned and operated by a Raiders lifetime fan. The link itself will save you an additional 15% just for the Raider D family.
Trey Taylor plays in the Western Conference. He went to school at Air Force. Now, he had some other offers that he could have went to, but he chose to go to Air Force, and the Air Force Academy is in the Mountain West, and the Mountain West is not considered a premier college conference. It is one of the bottom tiers. But you have to also remember that just because the conference that he played in may be amongst the bottom, it does not mean that he didn't play against good competition. He did. And it also doesn't mean that great players don't come out of the Western Conference. Just look at Jordan Love, the starting quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. The Mountain West Conference has put out a lot of premier talent, a lot of Pro Bowlers. So there are great players who come out of the Mountain West. However, because you play in the Mountain West, despite how good you are, despite being literally awarded the award that says you are the best defensive back in all of college, he fell all the way to the 7th round. This dude literally could have gone in the 2nd or 3rd round, and any team that would have got him would not have been reaching because he is literally that good. When you watch his game tape,
they switch it up a little bit. They go to number 14.
It is phenomenal. This dude is a dog. He tackles running backs like he's a 245-pound linebacker, and he's not. He's a 6 foot tall, 205 safety, but he hits hard and he takes excellent angles. He's very cerebral out there. He understands what's happening and he anticipates before the play even gets started. And this is what I'm really excited about, because moving forward, Trey will get a starting position on this defense, mark my words. Now, maybe not happen in 2024. You might only see him a handful of times this season, but watch him work his way in, because he is also very adept as a special teamer. So he will definitely be playing special teams this year, and he will come in as a rotational player. And if, God forbid, something happens to one of our starting safeties, he could get a shot. So with that, I want to say that the Raiders really handled things very well this year. It just felt different. It felt like adults were running the offseason this year, and we didn't do anything stupid like drafting people that nobody had ever heard of in the first round. Guys who were projected to be third and fourth rounders like John Gruden did so many times. That didn't happen. And so now I think that the Raiders are in a much better position. But here's the thing. I want to know, how do you guys feel about where we're at with the quarterback position, and who do you think should be the starter, and who do you think will be the starter? Will it be Aiden O'Connell, or will it be Gardner Minshew?